But I really don't have any regrets. I really don't. I've lived exactly how I've wanted to. I've tried my hardest every single time. I didn't win the matches that maybe I should have always won, but I really gave it my all. So that for me is enough.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Body Serve. I'm James.
I'm Jonathan.
And this is our ATP post-mortem for 2017. It's a little bit late.
It's also our season 3 finale.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Did we decide that already?
Where else are we going to get one in before? we struggle to get this one to air, to be honest, with how busy December has been.
Yeah, we are kind of in vacation mode, I would say. And I wonder, are people still in the mood to be recapping tennis?
We shall see.
So what happened? When I look back at the ATP season, I think kind of, where's the beef?
Well, before we get into that, this is episode 105, which means that we would have done 41 episodes this year.
Wow.
32, and now 41.
That's prolific.
Did you know that? Were you paying attention to that?
No, I knew we were above 36. Our 36 was our goal to reach 100. So I knew we had more than that.
You want to know about the beef?
Well,
the beef was Fedal in that instance.
That was the meat of this year. Mm-hmm. But where was the stuffing, the potatoes, the asparagus, the squash, the ham even? Where was the ham?
Thanksgiving is long gone.
This is a bit of a tortured metaphor, but we went through an entire year, a lot of it without Stan, without a real Djokovic. He played about half the year, but was himself only, in a few short spots. Andy Murray quit for most of the year. What the hell was going on? Even the second tier stars sort of fell off halfway through the year,
Like who?
Maybe Berdych is not a second-tier star anymore. He's sort of over the hill. But he played a good match against Djokovic in Wimbledon, right? It was just...
By second-tier, do you
Dominic
mean like
Thiem,
the young up-and-comers?
Dominic Thiem, who it seems like can only play on clay right now. Like he's just not doing anything on hard courts. Yeah, the up-and-comers, Raonic and Nishikori, who were top 10 players at the beginning of the year, just disappeared due to injury.
I just struggle with the classification of the non-Big Five people. Like, are they the next gen? Are they the lost gen? Are they the up-and-comers? Mm-hmm. The second tier? Like, who makes that second tier?
Right.
It's pretty much just the top five and everybody else. And then you can maybe say Zverev and Thiem are the presumptive underclass.
Right, like the heir is apparent, right?
But like everybody else is a crapshoot. Everybody else just kind of taking scoops of the pie every now and then. Like you can eat a whole goddamn pie, but you only want one spoon,
Right. The WTA was in flux as well this season, but in a very different way, because we talked about a lot of different players stepping up to the plate and putting in great performances in a tournament here or there. But on the men's side, we had really two superstars, maybe Grigor Dimitrov, and a lot of guys just not fulfilling their potential, I would say.
Well, Zverev, you'd have to put him in that category, in the vein of, say, maybe as Svitolina, who didn't really have massive results in the slams, but had big non-slam results.
Yeah.
That was Zverev.
Stepped up big time in some Masters events, but hasn't shown that he can shine on the most prestigious stages in the sport yet.
The other story on the men's side was the floating, roving Juan Martín del Potro. Mm-hmm. When he showed up to events, and this is something he's been doing since he came back last year. We saw it at the Olympics, made the Olympic final. He can beat anybody on any given day.
Right.
And he had one last slaying moment at the US Open for the year when he took out Federer. Well, and then with what some people say is the match of the year, when he came back, looked like he was in the infirmary almost to beat Dominic Thiem.
Right. Well, and Del Potro also got to the final in Basel after the US Open and really made a run for the finals, almost made it. So Del Potro is, one of the most exciting players in tennis a fan favorite perennially. I think we've had less of that on the men's tour over the past 5-10 years. These dangerous floaters, aside from Stan, who is no longer a floater. On the women's side, at any given moment you have Kvitova lurking, you have Sharapova ranked outside the top 80 before the summer. You have Venus Williams, who was a dangerous floater for many years.
I think that speaks to the gap between the top and that second tier more than anything else. Mm-hmm. Because when I first started watching tennis, on the men's side, you always had the Peter Kordas, the Piolines, like Hisham Irazir. He'd always be somebody to watch. Grosjean could beat people. You had all these journeymen, so to speak, people who had made a quarterfinal here or there. But you knew that their pedigree was such that if one of the top players drew them in an early round, something could happen.
Right.
We don't really have those players outside of Del Potro to really threaten the top guys anymore.
I agree. And having lost a big chunk of that top group, it shows what a gulf there is between the top and the next tier in the ATP this year. And that was very disappointing for some who are not Fedal fans, because the tour as a whole really suffered. There were some incredible moments watching these veterans do what they do, and no doubt tennis was played at a very high level by those two guys this year. But there was something missing.
I was totally okay with it for two reasons. Well, maybe three. The first being Rafa won a lot, which I'm totally okay with.
Yeah.
The second being, perhaps, well, I know for sure it exposed the ATP and the lack of depth and serious quality at the top, which we've talked about ad nauseum on the show about how the ATP has been riding the coattails of the big players.
Right.
Riding them to the bank and essentially resting on their laurels, not having to deal with player development necessarily or dealing with controversies, attack them head on because they have the big bright stars to outshine all other conundrums that could be PR issues, right? And so that they had to deal with that this year. I mean, they will probably feel like, oh, wow, magnificent, like Fedal all year long. Like, yes.
Oh, yeah.
But give us another year of this and we'll see what happens, right? The point is their time of reckoning for not having done the work is coming.
Mm-hmm. And let's be serious. The ATP is not going to be happy with Sam Querrey and Jack Sock at the top of the game. They're just not. It's not bringing eyeballs to the game outside of a few places in the United States. I think they were probably excited to crown Grigor Dimitrov at the end of the year, and he made for quite a spectacle and quite a story. And if he can continue that, I think the ATP sees him as a cash cow, as a potential superstar. Because, I mean, what's not to like, right? His game is aesthetically pleasing. He speaks English very well, which is important for the ATP.
He's charming.
He's gorgeous. And he seems like a nice enough guy.
He also seems earnest in doing the work, the PR work. Like he's up for that challenge as well. He's not a 20-year-old brooding, I'm over it. Why are you asking me that question for the 5th time? Wannabe superstar.
Yeah.
He's somebody who's taken his licks and is happy to be where he is.
When you mentioned that brooding superstar, it's going to take a change in Alex Zverev's disposition.
You had to say the name?
No.
Let people figure it out.
No, but to get people to really connect with him in a personality way.
And
you know what I mean?
That haircut is not going to help.
Ooh.
The third thing that I'm happy for with this Fedal season is it provided relief for me as a fan, because there weren't, in the second half of the season, that many high-stakes situations. There weren't the Venus Petra matches, the Venus Sloane semifinals. Rafa had a cute US Open run to a title. And it was accompanied by Kevin Anderson's run, which is one of my favorite moments of the year.
Yeah. And a popular choice among our listeners.
As somebody who is, when you stand somebody, this is a question to the listeners, perhaps. Like, do you prefer to have, say if you're a Sloane fan, were you happy that she had a blowout in that US Open final? Or would you have liked to have gone through it and have like a 7-6 third set result? Is that something that you look forward to with the people that you stand for? Or did you appreciate a final like Rafa Kevin, where the result was never in doubt. Kevin had a few cute moments. He tried his best, never gave up, and you could see your fave just win nice and cute and go about the rest of your Sunday evening without incident.
That is a good question. For me, I would take the latter every day of the week. I'll take Serena's final against Dinara Safina.
Oh my God.
Against Vera Zvonareva. I'll take that. There is a beauty in domination. And, some of us, we need to just move on and get on with our lives.
Is there anything else, generally speaking, that you want to say about the season this year? By way of wrapping it up before we get... Because we have listener questions that we got feedback from.
Yeah.
That we're going to structure the rest of the episode through. But is there anything else you want to say?
I would say this very surprising season of dashed expectations leaves the next few years on the ATP Tour totally unpredictable. I have no idea where the tour is going. I don't know how long Roger and Rafa will play and how long they will play at this level. So I think it's an exciting time for the men's tour, but also a scary time for the people who have a vested interest in promoting it.
And that is, maybe we should just cut and paste that for a segue into our preview episode for next year.
Right.
Because that opens up a lot of questions that we'll be getting into come January. The first question that we asked our listeners was, outside of Federer and Nadal, we want to know, what was your favorite non-Fedal slam moment of the year?
Well, the most popular response, almost everybody mentioned this, at least mentioned it, was Del Potro's victory over Dominic Thiem in the US Open round of 16. Del Potro looked terrible. He looked like he had a flu. Apparently he was running a fever. The first two sets were just like, please get this over with. Dominic won 6-1, 6-2. Didn't look like it was going to last very long. Lo and behold, Del Potro somehow won the third set 6-1. People were saying whatever pill the trainer gave him kicked in at that point. Maybe it was simply a Tylenol that reduced his fever. I don't know. This guy, it's no small wonder why he generates such a response from fans. People adore him, and he's electrifying. He just manages to pull energy from I don't even know where.
We talked about Del Potro as kind of a floating, roving threat, right? And he's somebody who's won a slam. He won the 2009 US Open, beating Federer then. He's beaten all the top guys. At this point, I believe multiple times. Nobody wants to play him. When he came back this most recent time from his wrist injuries, all folks could talk about was, oh my God, what a horrible backhand. The backhand is terrible, blah, 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 blah. And yet he's still out here in spite of that backhand, which I maintain is not that bad.
It's not.
He has a sliced backhand. He's able to use that to some effect to set up his outrageous forehand. He has a big serve. He's got the et ceteras. He knows how to construct points. There's more to his game than just one backhand. Right? And yet, he's flourishing. And what we can expect then is, based on these results in 2017, if he's able to maintain his health, he should be back in the top 10, no issue, at some point in 2018.
Right. I still get a sense that he is a bit frail, that every ache makes him a little nervous. And I think he has good reason to feel that way because of his history of wrist injuries, right? He was feeling some pain or some strain in his wrist toward the end of this season, and everyone got nervous, and so did he, but he decided to play that match afterward against Federer. But the kind of fan response that he takes with him everywhere he goes, and especially in New York, that will get him through like 6 days out of 7. Dominic, here's the thing. Dominic was up 5-3 in the fourth, 30 love, serving for it. He lost 2 match points, couldn't close it out against a hobbled, infirm Del Potro, and he said it didn't really stick with him. But, I mean, his results after the US Open, I think, really speak for themselves.
To be fair, his second half of 2016 was total shit as well. So, this has been the pattern of his career, to play well in the first half of the season, especially on clay, and not really do much the rest of the year. And the speculation has been, it's a scheduling issue, that he is exhausted. He's running on fumes come July, right?
Yeah, and I understand that his game is not custom built for hard courts, that he takes too much time on his strokes, that they're too elaborate, that he needs to find a way to get more time back.
I think it's more than that. We watched him play in Cincinnati,
and he was terrible.
Yeah, he goes for too much too often. That's his biggest problem.
Yes.
He has all the shots, but you don't always have to be going full throttle. And to your point about not having as much time, when you're doing that, if you have somebody who's able to present you with variety in opposition to you doing the full 100, like you are going to misfire more often than not.
Right.
And so he needs to add some conservatism to his game, is my view.
Okay.
More so, I mean, fine, at this point, you want to play and make that coin as much as you want. You know, like that's your decision, you do that. But this is something that you can change. A tangible difference you can make if you are still gonna play that much tennis.
He does get these questions from the media about his scheduling, and he says over and over, I love tennis. While I'm young and in shape, I want to play tennis a lot. I want to play as much as I can. And I don't understand how there's not someone in his team who's saying, yeah, maybe this is not the best way to go. Certainly know his coach is not going to be that person. That's just not who he is.
Because we learned that, is it Gunter Bresnik?
Yeah.
He said that they don't really pay much attention to the mental side of things.
Right.
Which is about as eye-opening a statement as you can get from a top player's coach.
Right.
That's crazy.
And okay, look past the mental side. Is he physically tired? Why is he flying to Turkey the week before Wimbledon to play on grass in a tournament no one has ever heard of?
It tells me that Bresnik and the people in his camp do not understand the totality of what one's mental makeup and game and the mental side of things encompasses. Right? Because it's not just, oh, I'm feeling very emotional today.
Right.
You know, it has to do with stress. It has to do with fatigue, emotional, physical, has to do with family, being away from your family, on the road, all these different things. And if, you know, your coach, your mentor that you've known and who's groomed you for all this time since you're a wee lad isn't fostering an open environment for you to be able to look within and address those non-physical issues, then maybe that's just not a very supportive environment for Dominic. I don't know. I don't know her. I don't know him.
You seem to
I'm
know.
not part of the team, but that's something that gives me great pause. That's maybe something to look at more so than what we've been harping on for so long with the scheduling, is my point.
And the reason we yammer on about Dominic is because we really like him, we really care about him. I like his game. I think he could be a future star. I mean, he's already a star, but there's going to take something to boost him to the next level.
Misha Zverev beat Andy Murray at the Australian Open. This was submitted by Catherine Shaw, Miss Mischief, Dr. Scholes, as one of their favorite non-Fedal slam moments of the year. And while I wouldn't say it was a favorite moment, it was definitely one of the more shocking moments for me.
It sure was.
And even, okay, fine, Murray lost. We kind of presumed there would be somewhat of a letdown from his season last year. We didn't think he could maintain that pace, especially post Wimbledon onward. That's why it really kicked into gear last year, right? And I'm not going to focus on Murray with the analysis of this. I'm just happy that this happened for Misha, because in the last couple of years, everything's been about Alex or Sasha or whatever he goes by. You know, it's nice to have the older brother, who is significantly older, by the way, get some time in the spotlight as well.
Yes, just don't ask Sasha about his brother. He's tired of answering your stupid questions.
The burden of being the younger child, right?
Now, Misha also beat John Isner. That was his first shocking scalp at the Australian Open, and he's turned into kind of John Isner's bugaboo, which I really enjoy, because he's not a super tall guy. He's playing a throwback game. He's rushing the net on almost every point.
He's pretty tall.
Is he?
I think so, yeah.
Well, he's not 6'10".
He's a big dude. Like, he's thick.
Yeah. The other match that kept jumping out at people, well, two other matches, I would say, the Nadal-Dimitrov match at the Australian Open and Nadal-Muller at Wimbledon. So I feel like we've talked about Nadal-Dimitrov quite a bit.
Yes.
So one thing I forgot about the season was that Dimitrov won, what was it, Brisbane? Yes. He beat 3 top 10 players to win Brisbane right before the Australian Open, and then had really that stunning performance against Nadal in Australia, and his results kind of dropped off for quite a while. But the Cincinnati and the World Tour Finals performance shouldn't have been a total shock considering how he started the year.
Well, people began running with the people began running with the narrative again that he was a head case, that he was potential unfulfilled, that the start to the year was just a tease, and that he's regressed to the norm.
Right.
That this is who he is.
And I'm sure I said that.
Probably.
That he's a player capable of stunning highs and stunning lows, and expect both.
Well, that we weren't going to get those highs that he scripted after the slump.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was another one of my favorite moments, Dimitrov being able to do that for himself.
Now the Nadal-Muller match, again, it falls into this narrative of Rafa being vulnerable to big servers, big hitters, attacking players at Wimbledon.
He did hit his head on the door jam.
Oh my God.
Before the match.
Yes,
that was
he
a bad
sure
omen.
did. Rafa didn't play badly in this match. Maybe with full use of his brain, he would have found a way out of it.
Oh my God.
But
if you recall, Muller was just serving unreal. Day.
Yeah.
There was not much that Rafa could have done. Another popular response was David Goffin. His resurgence toward the back end of the year was something that seemed to have been enjoyed by a whole lot of folks, culminating in his trying to single-handedly win Davis Cup for Belgium, and before that a deep run to the final at the World Tour Finals, losing to Dimitrov. But if you recall, Goffin, after having a decent spring, had that terrible unlucky injury that derailed him for a couple months at the French Open with the tarp at the back of the court.
Mm-hmm.
And so him being able to take advantage of perhaps the absence of some of the top guys, maintain and cement his place in the top 10, and then score those big results at the end of the year was another highlight.
Yes.
For some.
Because he had a very promising clay season going. He had that horrible call go against him against Rafa in Madrid in the semifinal there. And because he was playing Nadal really tough in that first set, a bad call, he let it get to his head and was utterly derailed. Just could not get it together. So there seemed to be kind of this dark cloud over him when that stupid tarp thing happened at Roland Garros. But he really bounced back. He won Tokyo and Shenzhen in the fall. And like you said, almost brought his team to Davis Cup victory.
Susie19 says that the Davis Cup match versus Kyrgios was one of her highlights. Jesna3 says that anything with Goffin in it this year was her highlight. Deanna says that Kevin Anderson's run at the US Open was one of her favorite non-Fedal moments, which we talked about Kevin Anderson's run as well already. He's back in the top 20, which is where I believe that's where he rightfully deserves to be. I think it's fitting of his talents. Maybe top 10 is a stretch, but he definitely wasn't a ranked below the top 50 type player that he was, making his way back from injury.
Right.
Miss Mischief, who goes by @DeathByTennis, says, and players like Goffin and PCB, Pablo Carreño Busta, who tennis media seem to be generally very dismissive of, maybe due to non-flashiness, defying expectations with great results while overcoming injuries and setbacks. Which fits into the tenor of what we've been talking about, right? We're tacking on PCB here. Thank you to Miss Mischief. He too benefited from this vacuum toward the end of the year.
Right. And a lot of the players who did step out of the shadows were not the ones who you expected or really should have. So there's PCB. Albert Ramos Vignolas reached a Masters final on clay. Jack Sock reached the ATP finals. Sam Querrey had a really good year.
Jack
at
also
majors.
won Paris.
Right.
Yeah.
Won his first Masters title. Sam Querrey won those 2 titles in Mexico.
Well, when you say coming out of the shadows, what comes to mind is Gloria Estefan.
Coming out of the dark.
Coming out of the dark.
This is just going to be a musical podcast.
Yeah, we're supposed to, I guess, sing on every episode now.
Because we're so talented.
You're welcome, Hurley Tennis.
Let's fly through the rest of these. Deliciano won Queen's Club, fulfilling his promise on grass, and walking the beach in very, very short shorts this past week. Thank you for that, Deliciano. All the moms, thank you as well.
I'm like years removed from being on that Deliciano train.
Really?
Yeah, it's just not. I'll let the mother class have Deliciano.
I guess I'm in the mother class then?
I guess.
Our shady friend Bree said, quote, Sasha being a good vulture twice. I assume she meant winning those Masters titles in Montreal and Rome. But I will give a counterpoint here. She did beat Djokovic in the Rome, or he did. He did beat Djokovic in the Rome final. So that's not exactly a vulture, right?
Is the premise of vulture...
Isn't vulturing like stealing points at tournaments that have not that great draws?
Yes, and I would agree with you there, but I do believe that Bree is being shady when she says vulture there. We have to assume.
I wouldn't put it past her.
Yes, we just have to assume.
Shapovalov, Dennis, Shapstick, El Chapo. Do you have any more nicknames for him?
None that I can say on air.
I don't think he likes Shapstick. That's from Brad Gilbert, and that wouldn't be the first player to push back at a Brad Gilbert nickname.
El Chapo is horrible.
Is it though? It's kind of funny, isn't it? I feel like you're taking it too seriously.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, if I'm a tennis player, I don't want to be associated with no drug dealer, kingpin.
Okay. I mean, it's not that serious.
I mean, what about El Chapo?
What about Chapeau? He's Canadian. It's French.
It's not EAUX.
So, what? It's a nickname.
I'm just saying that there has to be. Go with Dennis the Menace.
Okay, that's cute enough. Basically, what I was getting to was Dennis was also a common refrain among listeners of the Body Serve. His performance in his home tournament was exciting. Obviously, beat Nadal in a match that I, for some reason, did suffer through. We actually, right when we moved to our new place, after our cable got set up, I would think I was building a desk.
We were
something.
both here doing a whole bunch of other stuff around the house, not paying much attention, and they were like, "Oh shit, how did this happen?" How about Saint Denis? You know, like in Montreal, Rue Saint Denis.
Saint Denis.
Yeah.
So he's Saint Denis.
Saint Denis. I think that's what I'm gonna call him. Okay. Now. Saint Denis.
Well, he is on the path to redemption after slamming that umpire in the face with the ball. That is true. Oh, that's good. Okay. I think that covers the favorite moments.
No. Query, man. We have to shit on Query.
Oh yeah.
How
Aaron,
dare you pass up a moment to be bitchy and messy?
It's not even our messiness. A listener named Aaron, who's at ArcKnight_12, said Query not making the Wimbledon final or US Open semifinals was his highlight. Like, wow. That's messy even for us.
Those were near misses. Mm-hmm. I mean...
He probably should have made those.
Well, near misses in that it would have been awful if he had won those tournaments for
You mean
us.
like we dodged a bullet?
Don't forget that he already beat Rafa to win Acapulco in that final. Mm-hmm. That was crazy. And the indelible image, in a bad way, of Sam Querrey with that dopey smile with that big sombrero and Rafa having to stand beside him was just not at all a good look or a good moment for me in 2017.
It was so nice he did it twice because he went back to Mexico after Wimbledon and won another title there.
And then we got all these MAGA build the wall jokes because of him doing so well. You thought I said MAGA, like...
Yes, like Jamaican.
Yeah. When somebody's too thin, we say that they're MAGA in Jamaica, like MAWGA.
So you mean MAGA.
I guess
MAGA.
MAGA.
Make something great again.
Yes. Make that former colony of Britain great again.
How dare you?
Two last quick tidbits to mention. Schwartzman making the US Open quarterfinals. Sylvia said that. And then we talked about PCB, but he also, don't forget, made the Roland Garros quarterfinals and the US Open semis. Mm-hmm. So big results for two lower profiled guys. It's almost as if those two should be Frenchies. You know, like you have, they're like the Simons of the world now.
No, but
they're occupying that role.
But these guys are punching above their weight. The French have many, many talented players who are not achieving what they should.
which is why I said Simon, because to my mind, Simon overachieved.
Right.
And the French comparison is that they just have a whole bunch of guys who can do this stuff, as evidenced by the depth in their Davis Cup team, which they finally won this year.
Okay, so let's move on to some happenings in the men's tour that truly surprised you this year. And y'all have been talking a lot, so I'm going to say mine first.
Who's y'all? Like the listeners?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mine is Djokovic not only losing to Dominic Thiem in Roland Garros, but getting bageled by Dominic Thiem. That was shocking. But what was even more surprising to me is him going on to Eastbourne and winning right after that.
I didn't even remember that he went on to Eastbourne and won.
That was, I mean, there were so many things about Djokovic this year that surprised me. The other big one was him dumping his entire team. And I was surprised that, looking back, that was actually this year, because so much crazy shit has happened with him.
That was also a contribution from Ross O'Neary, Rian. For me, the biggest surprise, the thing that surprised me most, was how much I enjoyed Laver Cup and how much it seemed to fit. And I know, and we talked about this, that it had everything to do with Fedal. And without Fedal there, it would have been far less high profile, far less successful, far less interesting. But we got to see Fedal play doubles together, which was one of the highlights of my year. That was fun.
It was. And I think it was fun as long as you don't take it super seriously, right? If you don't get upset that these players were spotlit and certain players weren't, or criticize the authenticity of certain matches. Like, it's not supposed to be a Grand Slam tournament.
Sometimes,
you know what I mean?
We don't have to extrapolate.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to take things as they are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, if you get a cake and you like the cake, eat the cake. Don't be like, well, the cake could have had some sprinkles on it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're still eating cake.
Like, beggars can't be choosers?
You could say that, I guess. I don't know.
I've seen a few people use the language of disruption, referring to Laver Cup. And while I don't really like the sort of tech bro vocabulary of disruption, I do understand the point of, basically, if there's a demand that is not being met in the marketplace, create it. And that's exactly what Laver Cup did with some of the most institutional figures in tennis, in world tennis. Davis Cup, or the ATP, or the ITF, were not providing something that apparently a lot of people wanted. Or they didn't know they wanted it.
No, but that's my point. Mm-hmm. They wanted it because of Fedal.
Right.
Like, what would the reception have been without these two?
That's true, yeah.
Like,
I mean, you need star power.
You do.
But I think Davis Cup still has a lot of support and can still be exciting. But a lot of players have criticized the scheduling, the format. We've been over this before. Davis Cup is obviously not doing something that fans want. And maybe it's not supposed to. Maybe it shouldn't.
This is where Laver Cup really needed the star power, because at least Davis Cup has the history embedded in it. To start a new event like Laver Cup, the premise of it, akin to like a President's Cup, Ryder Cup, or what have you, we've seen that precedent in sport before. So there is, in theory, room for that. But if you launch it with Taylor Fritz playing Diego Schwartzman, like, who's gonna watch?
Wow, that's so rude.
And so for the first few editions, you're gonna need that star power to keep it going.
Yes.
For people to come back after Fedal maybe aren't playing or headlining it. And don't forget, it behooved Fedal to really show up and turn out this time around, because so many of the other top players weren't there either.
Right.
There were gonna be participation from the likes of Stan and Kay, definitely Nishikori, and I believe Stan as well.
I think so, yeah.
And they weren't able to show up. So not only did Fedal dominate at the slams and for the most part throughout the entire year, but they actually did the most with this too when, well, Rafa helped Federer out. Because this is Federer's tournament too, let's not forget that.
It provides a kind of fan service that no other experience in tennis can, right? You get these backstage, like, half bogus kind of strategy sessions between Federer and Nadal about how they're going to handle their doubles match. You get legends of the game on the sidelines coaching quote, I'm doing scare quotes here. You have Rafa jumping on Roger Federer's bad back, celebrating their victory. So all these fan moments kind of outshine some of the potential issues with format.
Tennis USA fan, who is Matt, says that Shapovalov's Davis Cup default was his most, a result that really, truly surprised him this year.
Yeah.
And boy, was it surprising.
I would wager that most of the tennis fandom did not know who Dennis was at that time. I remember watching that with my jaw on the ground. And we were actually in a bar after work, and since we're in Canada, that was actually on TV. They were replaying that because it's, it's actually some Canadian tennis news. But to see kind of the way he handled that and the transformation since then was surprising. Because I think it would be easy for a lot of people to forget that he was the same kid who did that.
Who then went on to make the semis in Montreal and then the quarterfinals at the US Open. No, I lie. He made the fourth round because he lost to PCB.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I thought that was kind of far.
Scholes also says that the Thiem Mladenovic love match was one of the things that truly surprised him this year.
He is just trying to bait us into saying something rude and messy, and we're just not going to do it.
We've already said too much from the previous episode.
Have. Another surprise, again, Tennis USA fan said Brian Vahaley coming out. That was surprising to me because while we still don't have a men's tennis player who is currently active who is out, we do have Brian Vahaley coming out as a retired player.
We have for sure one who is a former player who is now a current coach who is not out publicly.
Correct. We shan't be naming names.
No.
But
two things. I mean, it's his prerogative to come out when he wants to.
Yes.
Right?
Agreed.
That's his business. I'm wondering here now if part of the reason why, if it's not just for like, it's my own damn business, leave me alone, if it's like the need to keep working in tennis, if that's something that's a consideration, because I mean, I don't want to it's so hard to talk about this stuff without naming the person, right? But I know that this person has worked in Dubai before, for TV stuff. They're actively traveling all over the world for tennis, so like this is not a slam dunk easy decision to make.
Right.
It's fraught, it's complex.
Yeah, and this is something that the ATP has not had to reckon with, and where they choose to have tournaments following the money, how are they going to protect players for whatever reason? The women have had to think about that. The ATP will have to reckon with that eventually. But I would hope that an organization basically makes itself hospitable before it becomes a problem. Creates a community to encourage players to come out rather than being reactive.
I would probably drop dead of a heart attack if that happened.
Yeah.
Because everything about the ATP, they're not even reactive. Because they don't even react to when stuff happens. So, like, to expect them to be proactive with something like this, like, come on. I mean, Andy Murray would probably have to threaten to not play a tournament, to play Wimbledon. Unless he came with his list of demands, and that was one of them before they did anything.
Oh, my God. Can you imagine? The LTA would have to consult with the Queen, and, what do we do?
This last question that we asked, you have written here what infuriated you. That was not the question.
It was pretty close.
No. The question was indulging your most petty and dark-sided self, which is a very important preface to the question. What were some of the results that truly pissed you off, essentially?
Okay.
This is 2017.
This is 2017. Dark-sided and petty is implied. Okay, we're already in that mode. So I would say this question speaks to the essence of the body serve in this era.
That's a nice save. But if you're going to be using stuff that I've written, I would like it to be transcribed.
No, but you did
word for
word.
Use
the word infuriate.
Okay. Dark-sided conjures Marguerite Perrin, and that's a very important image to be conveying as well. It's like one of the greatest GIF or GIF.
GIF.
GIF
wow.
or GIF?
People are really serious about this out here. Talking about how we pronounce GIF or GIF. And all I have to say is, like, I don't really care. It's spelled with a G. And, some words have a soft G, some have a hard G, and, like, you're probably just going to have to deal with it.
And,
But that's not a dig at our new follower who corrected our pronunciation, because thank you for following us, and thank you for saying those nice things. It's really, we're really not mad about it.
We're just kind of old.
It's
as
just,
well.
For some reason, Jif is natural to me, and like I said, I think it's because of the peanut butter.
No, the issue is we are older. We are...
Speak for yourself.
Just shut your mouth.
I am not Jesus's age yet.
You are 32.
I don't recall wanting to make that public.
Well, it now is, because you're over here pretending like you're some spring chicken when you isn't.
I keep up with the Snapchats and the Instagrams.
My point is, we are from a generation, a different group of peoples, where, yes, correct language and usage is important to us, but that we did our learning or coming of age before this internet age and these new jargon and words became part of the parlance, right?
Yes.
So this stuff doesn't come naturally. We're like the grandmothers of tennis Twitter, right? Like when grandmas can't tweet and don't have to take so long to...
That's really unfair, because there are literal grandmas on tennis Twitter.
Okay, you get my point. And so, like, I just don't have it in me to give a shit about the proper pronunciation of GIF or GIF.
True, true.
I care about the proper pronunciation of a player's name. Like, if somebody tells me, oh, I pronounced the player's name wrong, I'm like, well, damn. That I really want to do better there.
Yeah, because some of you youngins, do you know how to use a rotary telephone? No, I bet you don't. Do you know how to use a fax machine? Well, I do.
Do you know what a Zach Morris phone is?
Do you know how to use a typewriter? I do.
Do you know how you would erase a letter on a typewriter after you typed the wrong letter?
I don't. You just like pound on it so it just covers up the letter, right?
No, there's a specific thing. You go line it up, and there's a key that you boom.
Okay.
Do you know how to use? Do you remember those paper cutters from school?
Yeah.
With like the machete. Well, I say machete. You say machete. I say cutlass. Really. On the side of it, you just go down, and it was like damn near impossible to get a perfect line.
Or it's just cut like a blade or whatever.
Yeah. Anyway.
How did we start talking about that?
Oh, something about it. Oh, the Marguerite Perrin.
Oh, Dark-Sided.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a gift. It's a gift to all of us.
Yeah, look it up. It's from Wife Swap. It's amazing. So what infuriated you all, our loyal listeners? A lot of people. We happen to attract Nadal fans, so a lot of people were angered by the Australian Open final. Rafa having been up a break in the 5th set and losing to Roger. I know that really pissed me off.
All the Fedel matches from Shannon Clark pissed her off.
Yep, I'm on board with that as well.
The Wimbledon final pissed folks off too.
Yeah, are you sensing a pattern here?
That whenever Roger won, this is where the pettiness and the dark-sidedness comes in, because some folks, rightly so, because that's how you feel. You should embrace those feelings. You just can't be happy for him.
Right. I would like to do some analytics on like what percentage of our listener base is a Roger fan, and what percentage is Rafa, and how many are neither.
And there's some who are both.
That's true.
I'm pretty sure Ryan, or is it Ryan?
I don't know. Maybe we should have asked beforehand.
Ross O'Neary, I'm pretty sure that they're a Fedel fan together.
Amazing.
Yeah,
it's like being a Serena Pova fan.
You should be in arbitration. You should be a judge.
Because you are just so even-keeled. No, I mean, I think we're clear that we are Rafa fans, but we have much, much respect for Roger Federer and can enjoy him.
Yeah.
We're just not what you would call fans.
I'm pretty sure if you go back and check the receipts from season 1 of The Body Serve, it would not read or listen like it did in 2017. I feel like we've evolved on Federer. Less so his fans.
Yeah.
But a lot on Federer.
Not any of you, obviously. Anything the American men won made a lot of you all upset.
Yeah.
Minus Francis Tiafoe and Steve Johnson. That's from @FatNancy, and that's a PH for all of you snickering. Steve Johnson's plight this year was really affecting. It was really emotional. His dad passed away in May, and he was a big figure in California tennis. He was a coach for many years and led Steve through his tennis career. And he played Roland Garros less than 3 weeks after his dad died. That match against Borna Coric was really heartwarming, also just heartbreaking for Steve. So it was hard to lump him into that group of garbage can American men. Same with Francis Tiafoe and Christopher Eubanks.
Avid tennis fan says that the Harrison Venus Roland Garros doubles title was infuriating. And I presume that had to do with Ryan Harrison's triumph that day. And kudos to Ryan, because he went on to become one half of one of the top doubles teams on the entire year. Made the doubles lineup in London at the O2. That's
enough said about that.
That was not one of our favorite moments of the year. Put it that way.
Andy and Novak's losses at the Australian Open infuriated a lot of you. That terrible line call that we talked about that went against Goffin and derailed his tournament in Madrid was a terrible moment. And I guess, people make mistakes. But that was a pretty consequential one.
You have here written at the end of this segment, this sort of segues into men are trash.
So this next segment is kind of part and parcel of the previous one. It's basically...
And it's literally called Men Are Trash.
Why are you trying to steal my thunder here?
The idea for this segment was my idea.
That's true.
You wrote Men Are Trash.
So
you can have that.
These are examples in which the ATP and men's tennis players stepped in it, aka Men Are Trash. And the disclaimer is that, yes, we are men, and we're mostly trash too. So in case, anyone was thinking that we were being hypocritical or setting ourselves aside from men, this is not the hashtag Not All Men show. Generally, men are not basically held to the same level that women are professionally, correct?
Privately, socially,
sexually.
At the club, at the grocery store.
Right.
In the classroom.
So we just wanted to list off a few of the men who were terrible this year and beseech them to do better next year.
Ilya Nastasi.
Is there any hope for him?
No.
So I'm not beseeching him to be better. I'm just beseeching him to go away and be quiet.
John McEnroe with his Serena Williams bullshit again this year.
And I actually had to go back and listen to a part of one of our episodes from earlier in the year because I forgot about this. He was going off about Nick Kyrgios again, talking about how, he needs to get his head together, he has to decide whether he wants to play this game, blah, 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 blah. And that prompted a whole chorus of people to say, wow, maybe John McEnroe should be Nick's coach. I'm like, what? How did you get there from that? For me, I think the John McEnroe example brings up something about men's sports and just how men relate to each other that I really don't like, that I never liked as a kid. I don't see that sort of kind of tough love, being highly critical of someone publicly as supportive, as just because that person is an expert in their field. In this case, because John McEnroe is a legend and was highly successful in the way that he chose to approach the game, which is certainly not everyone's approach to the game. Just because those things are true doesn't mean that that's the kind of support system that Nick Kyrgios needs. Or anyone else for that matter.
Max Eisenbud.
Oh man. Max Eisenbud, I think it's just a case of someone who cannot keep his mouth shut. And I think people who know him, Lindsay Davenport for one, sort of chuckle at his ridiculous proclamations. We saw them sitting together at the US Open, right? And you could see her literally on TV looking at him and sort of rolling her eyes many times, like he's an amusing diversion.
But specifically, set aside the Sharapova business, that was from last year. Set aside all that other stuff. This is specifically for his clapback at Wozniacki and Radwanska this year. Essentially, well, not essentially, he did call them journeymen.
Yes.
Tennis players. And that it was just crazy.
Dan Evans, and not for his ban, but for all the stuff he was saying about Aljaz Bedene
Wasn't that last year?
that continued into this year.
Oh, it did? Okay.
Before the cocaine thing. And we recently found out that Bedene is going to be playing for the Olympics in Slovenia. Yeah, I don't know if you saw this. This recently came out. And a lot of the British press and, Twitter accounts or whatever are saying, framing it as if he's a flip-flopper and he's deciding to go back and play for Slovenia because whatever, he doesn't care about his country, blah, blah, blah. Glossing over the fact that he tried for 9 years to play for Great Britain and the ITF wouldn't allow it. So he wants to go play for the Olympics.
It's the damn Olympics, man.
Right.
It's important to people. You get one shot every 4 years. John Isner, who is out here on these Twitter streets liking all manner of heinous shit.
Mm-hmm.
And Bad Toss has been highlighting that all year. So thank you to her for doing the work.
For your service.
Uh-huh.
Beating the drama of tax reform. He will watch his fellow citizens suffer all manner of indignities as long as the tax system is reformed. And I mean, these people are really upset the tax code has a lot of pages. They want less pages. Okay? Did you see Donald Trump stand in front of a whole, basically pillars of paper? It was the stupidest PR stunt I've ever seen. Like, Americans are so anti-intellectual that they think paper with words on it is the problem with our country. That there are too many pages.
I just recall a conversation with someone in the tennis world while I was on site. I want to say in Cincinnati or Charleston this year. One of the two. And they were told, I hope I'm recalling this right, I believe Courtney Nguyen tweeted about this around the time of the election, that something that was really personally offensive to her was, in the lead up to the election, how many of the American players, when they were asked about it privately, because she is, after all, the WTA insider, like, she does have access to a lot of the players, but she was told that so many of these players can forego and overlook so much of the concerns that minorities would have or social issues leading into the election because of the economic incentives with respect specifically to taxes.
Oh, yeah.
And
isn't that obvious?
No, I didn't realize at the time that it's something that would be so openly owned. And at the time of the election, Courtney was going through it on Twitter, she was quite emotional in the way she was tweeting about it, and the gist of it, and a lot of people in response to that were just like, well, fuck that. Over it.
I mean, that's clearly also a way to disown how destructive your politics are, is to blame it all on the economy, as if your economic positions aren't destructive in and of themselves. But that's not what this is about.
It's a bit tangential. If there are other people who should have made this Men Are Trash segment, please let us know. We are not above piling on. We'll pile on as much as we can. Make a list, post it, list the transgressions, let us know. By no means do we expect this list to have been exhaustive or comprehensive.
Impossible. But let us not forget, and let us...
And this was from 2017, because we know the list could be endless if we take into consideration previous years.
I mean, and Fabio Fognini has just been, taken out of contention. He's, the head of his own list.
Shit, we forgot to mention him. He's absolutely on the list.
Yeah.
What did he even do? Who can keep a track of what he did? Oh, the umpire. Yeah. That was awful. Yeah, Fognini is right. I mean, he's at home at the top of the list.
Oh, yeah. But let us not forget the players who make us happy to share a chromosome. Grigor Dimitrov is a super nice guy. Rafa Nadal, he's a good sport.
He seems to welcome the attention from men.
Roberto Bautista Agut, again, is...
the lone voice.
Really.
Supporting, or at least espousing support for LGBT issues in sport. If you recall, he wore the rainbow colors on his shoe, on his sneaker at one point, and he has tweeted about the Pride Parade. And
Sir Andrew Barron Murray, who has taken a second job as a professional troll on Twitter, clapping back at Trump, clapping back at reporters when they don't give enough credit to women or default to men. Andy is just the straight man we need right now.
We're going to finish up with recapping the award winners and
the ATP Awards.
Yeah, the ATP Award winners and general chit chat about that. Apparently, Player of the Year is Rafa. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that the ATP just awarded the year a #1 Player of the Year.
Do they?
Well, that's what the Wikipedia page says.
Oh, it's just automatic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, on the ATP Awards on their website, on the awards section, it just says world #1, and he got the trophy for that year end. And then on Wikipedia, it says something about Player of the Year. So maybe that's like a Nadal fan sneaking in there and making that edit. I do understand that Wikipedia is not like
it's not peer-reviewed
peer-reviewed resource here. I do have a master's degree. I'm just saying that's what I used for the WTA recap, and so that I was like, "What? I didn't hear anything about that." Nadal Player of the Year, and in any case, we've talked about that. We don't think that there is a Player of the Year, that it should be joint at least, and that in my mind, if we are,
we didn't agree on that.
I thought we did.
No, I think that Rafa has to get it because Roger set out the entire clay season.
Oh.
I think there's a clear Player of the Year in my mind.
Okay. You do you. we're allowed to disagree.
But imagine.
But my point here, which is what I was setting up a little bit of a joke here, which you've just stymied the momentum. If there is to be a tiebreaker, it goes to Rafa's hairline, which has been the low-key MVP of 2017. Coming from where he was to where he is now, that transplant has worked wonders.
Well, I mean, it's no LeBron hairline. I guess when you have LeBron money, you can get a real good hairline. Rafa does still have kind of that bald patch in the back.
Listen, I said from where we're coming.
Okay, so you mean like most improved hairline?
I'm saying it's the MVP of the year.
Okay.
We were like months away from Rafa being bald.
Yeah. Well, Roger and Andy gotta watch out because that baldness is coming for them too.
And Tommy Haas. Whoa, when I saw him this year.
Yeah.
Lord, that was mean. That was dark-sided. Federer won the most titles with 7. Rafa made the most finals with 10. Rafa led the prize money list, $15.8 million. Doubles Player of the Year, which again is just like the top team, it seems.
Yeah.
Based on what I saw. Lukas Kubat, and then Marcelo Melo. Most improved player, Saint-Denis, is the most improved player.
Chapstick. Which, sure, that's an uncontroversial pick, I think.
Saint-Denis is also the star of tomorrow.
What? Like, you can't give that to someone else? Wouldn't it make more sense to give Dennis Star of Tomorrow, which definitely sounds like a Star Search thing, or like a pageant award? Most improved you could give to PCB, you give to Sam Querrey, Jack Sock. No, but real like David Goffin even.
Yeah, but still.
Even though he'd been in the top 10 before.
Saint-Denis came like hundreds of places out of the blue.
It just doesn't make sense to give him both, in my opinion.
Look, they were handing this out way across the globe, and he was willing to fly in to pick up the awards. Okay, I think that had a lot to do with it.
It's like the Billboard Music Awards, or the People's Choice Awards. They'll give it to you if you show up.
And Federer is Comeback Player of the Year.
Yeah, that is terrible, in my opinion. That is such a waste of an award. Comeback because he sat out half the year last year from injury? No. It's really a damn shame.
What?
Yeah, he chose to sit out the year.
He was injured.
No, he chose to sit out longer than he had to convalesce.
Yeah, but
which was his right. And then he didn't play for like 3 months out of the season. I don't know how you're going to give him Comeback Player of the Year. I think that was a terrible decision.
No, I think you're misremembering in terms of like the extent of that injury and the course of recuperation and what was entailed in that. And also the idea here is that he was not thought to be a slam winner again previously.
Okay.
I don't know. I just don't think it's as egregious as you make it out to be. Who would you have in his stead then?
I don't know.
It's not Del Potro. He got Comeback the year before.
Now, what's really egregious is the Stefan Edberg Sportsmanship Award.
Yeah, which is utter shit.
What is the purpose of the award? why should one player win it 11 times? It's ridiculous. Like, it has no meaning. Why not highlight people who have had like meaningful instances on the court where they gave an opponent a point, or I don't know, helped out a ball kid who fell down or something like that, you know, and continued that nice behavior throughout the year.
I think what's being conflated here though is ambassador of the year. Do you know? Like Federer's tennis ambassador of the year.
Right.
More so than sportsman necessarily.
It's
Do you know what I mean? It's like the meaning
silly.
of sportsmanship is too muddied. And if I'm Federer, I'm doing an Oprah. I'm like, I've won this Emmy so many times. I'm going to take my name out of the running.
You know what, Ellen? You have
Exactly.
it.
And now they're both conglomerates and they hang out all the time now.
It's, to me, it's like, of course, Roger Federer is a good sportsman. I'm definitely not arguing that. But what is the purpose of the award if it's not to honor like a real example of sportsmanship in tennis?
I'm like,
do you know what I mean?
What incentive is there to all the other players to show good sportsmanship if they know at the end of the year they don't stand a chance to win this award?
That could be said about all of these awards. Again, my position on ATP and WTA awards is like the honors and the accolades in sport is what you achieve on the field, on the court. It's what you actually do in the sport. So these awards are superfluous, in my opinion. So if you have a more
democratic.
No. So if you have an award that is more intangible, like sportsmanship, it should honor something material. It should honor something that you can look back and say, oh yeah, he did that, rather than
a numbers award.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That brings us to the end of episode 105 and season 3 of The Body Serve.
Damn.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this little time off. Who knows? We'll be back next week maybe. If something comes up.
Maybe the week after Christmas. Who knows? We haven't done a TV episode this year, have we? I don't think so.
I can't recall.
So,
we've done 2 in history.
Maybe we'll do that.
Perhaps. I'm not committing to that. Thanks for all the support throughout the year. Thank you to all the new listeners. We've heard from a few of you recently. Chike, thank you so much for your kind words recently. Yeah. That was wonderful. Spread the word. Tell your friends. Tell your ma and your pa about The Body Serve. Your cousins.
Cousins. There's no T in cousin.
Your kin. As always, I am Jonathan. My name has not changed. I am on Twitter at tennis_John.
And I'm James at ElliotJMR.
2 L's, 2 T's. You can support The Body Serve by giving us a review on iTunes. And also, as we mentioned, telling your friends. The show is also on Twitter at The Body Serve. Same on Instagram. And we look forward to hearing from you. Give us your feedback about the episode. Tell us your favorite moments from the year. Just give us feedback in general. We like to hear from you. And see you again for season 4. Till next time.